Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. I got a special guest in the building, Mr. Richie Bradshaw from the Locked on Sun Devils podcast. Our teams are getting ready to square off in the college football playoff quarterfinal, the Peach Bowl, New Year's Day. Richie, we're so excited to have you on, ready to talk ball, ready to see some more ball, ready to see the Arizona Sun Devils make their playoff debut. Congratulations on winning the Big 12 championship. Year one in the Big 12. Kenny Dillingham, people have been sleeping on him all year. Richie, welcome to Fanatic Perspective. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I appreciate the time to get me on here and introduce myself to the Texas Longhorn Loyal. It's going to be a good time, good conversation.
Absolutely, man. So you went a little viral in the Texas community,
A little bit.
a little bit, right? We engaged, and right away I knew you were a real one because you said, "Hey, let's talk ball." Right? Hey, I want to have that football conversation. So I was thrilled. We were able to hook it up and want to get this out to everybody to view ahead of the game. Right? Texas fans getting a little bit more familiar with Arizona State and vice versa. If you're an Arizona State listener from Richie's podcast, Locked on Sun Devils, getting a little bit more familiar with Texas, right, and what we bring to the table as well. So, Richie, just coming into this, you guys are the Big 12 champs. We're the former Big 12 champs. So I think that's a interesting dynamic. The last two Big 12 champions facing off a big time opponent in Texas. But talk to me about Arizona State from a standpoint of you guys. I'm looking at this game as a Texas fan. I'm like, hey, Jordan Tyson was a big piece. Third team All American, fantastic receiver all year. Sam Leavitt's main man, the guy that kind of kept the box clean for Camp Skattebo. How does Arizona State, kind of move on from there? I know you guys did that with, loud energy in the Big 12 championship game against Iowa State. But now coming into this Texas game, like kind of, let's talk matchups, man. Like, how do you kind of see that happening without Jordan Tyson available?
Well, the thing that's going to be so interesting is obviously without Tyson, that's such a massive component of your passing game that's no longer there. And there's whispers of like, oh, he might come back and blah blah blah. And I'm one of those people where it's like, until I see something, I'm gonna presume he's not coming back. He had a upper body injury, which we pretty much have narrowed down to either a broken collarbone or an AC joint. He's not coming back from that anytime soon. And even if he does, is it worth it to rush him back to where he might not be 100%? Probably not. So when ASU played the Big 12 championship game against Iowa State, who has a very, very good secondary, that was one of the biggest questions is, hey, how are the Sun Devils going to be able to move the football through the air? We all know of Cam Skattebo, the guy who can ground and pound ASU's offense to wins. He's done it all year. But if a team were to stack the box against Skattebo and force Leavitt to pass the ball through the air, how are they going to be able to adjust? And Leavitt has shown some significant growth since week one against Wyoming to the Big 12 championship game. I've said often that if you were to show me in week one against Wyoming some of the film of him from the Big 12 championship game or against BYU or anything else like that,
Sure.
I would have assumed that was a year, maybe 2 years down the road. His development has been insane. And what you're hoping is the Big 12 championship game was kind of the introduction into how he can spread the ball around because Tyson was legitimately like 10 plus targets a game every single time that him and Leavitt were playing together. And he spread the ball around pretty well. And obviously, Skattebo is still able to really run the ball pretty much at will against whoever they're lining up against, whether it's 8 men in the box or 3 men in the box. He just finds a way to generate those yards. But Leavitt just needs to continue to show the willingness and the ability to distribute the football with Tyson being gone. It looked really good against Iowa State. And if you're going to advertise that against any Big 12 team, Iowa State would have been my preferred choice with the amount of NFL talent that is in that secondary. Now it's a matter of continuing to do it with the assumption that Tyson's not going to be here, whether it's one more game or 2 more games or 3 more games, however long this postseason dance is going to be able to continue for ASU, it's going to be up to, or not Tyson, up to Leavitt to continue distributing the football and getting everybody involved. And there's guys that are able to do it. There's players with different skill sets, but that's going to be the biggest challenge here is Leavitt's ability to move the ball around and say, hey, that's not there. I can't get the deep ball. We're going to take the underneath, vice versa, etc.
So, Texas fans out there listening, number one, we are having a great conversation. Hit that like button, subscribe the whole bit. Also, to keep up with my man Richie over at the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, go like, share, subscribe our content, cross platform. Follow up to your point about Sam Leavitt and the growth. Number one question for you is, what do you attribute that seasonal growth to? Is that a Marcus Arroyo, former UNLV head coach, who's now your offensive coordinator, and what he's been able to do? Is that more Kenny? Where's that growth coming in for what you've seen from Sam? Because he was one of the 2023 guys. For those who are unfamiliar, Arch Manning, Nico, Jackson Arnold, Avery Johnson at Kansas State. What's his face over at Pitt, the guy that transferred from Alabama. So there's a ton of 2023 guys, and Sam went to Michigan State, then transferred to y'all. Y'all had Jaden Rashada, another 2023 guy who went to Georgia. Like the musical chairs and the quarterback thing is interesting, but you guys got Sam here, and like you said, he's taken off. And the thing I noticed with him was his legs against Iowa State. He was using his legs very decisively, but also Cam Skattebo in the passing game as well as a weapon, over 500 receiving yards for him. So what do you attribute his growth to, and how have you seen that with Sam Leavitt in particular?
It's definitely a Marcus Arroyo thing, in my opinion. He has done so many wonders for this offense this year, and the ability to just get so many other guys involved, even when it really has felt like a three-person offense between Sam Leavitt, Jordan Tyson, and Cam Skattebo. They've still been able to get other people involved, and that was on full display in the Big 12 championship game. But Marcus Arroyo has been terrific this year. You mentioned that he was a former head coach at UNLV. He's got experience all over the place at high levels and high school levels, and he's been able to quickly dial up a chemistry with Sam Leavitt, and those guys have just been able to get better and better progressively. And Kenny Dillingham is also an offensive-minded head coach. He is just 34 years old. He was born in 1990, so that's mind-blowing for a lot of people. The first coach born in the 90s to make a bowl game. That's only going to sound crazier and crazier as we continue to go, but he is also a very innovative and young offensive mind. So having him and Arroyo together to be able to work with Leavitt has been one of the biggest beneficiaries for him to take that next step to where he's at. And he's got quality weapons and everything, but he could have the best weapons in the world, and it wouldn't matter if he's not getting the coaching behind him to develop him to that next point. We see that at blue blood programs, all the time, where there's like 5 or 6 NFL level players, and the quarterback just isn't able to grasp it as quickly because they need the coaching. So having the coaching available for Sam Leavitt, to me, is what I attribute to the growth that's just been so rapid for him this year.
It's been impressive. I mean, if you look at QBR, I think he's top 10 in QBR, quarterback play overall in the country. Amazing touchdown to interception ratio. And like we said, with that Iowa State game, I think you guys only lost one game because he didn't play in was it the Kansas State game, or which game?
Cincinnati game.
Cincinnati game.
One.
Yeah, the Cincinnati game, he didn't play. So he really only has one loss on his record as a starter. So I have a lot of respect for that. Texas fans, I know, a lot of us are looking at it. Hey, 13.5-point spread. We just came our first round game against Clemson. We felt like they had a lot of firepower. Dabo Swinney, very established program, and we were able to handle our business. And coming into this game, again, no Jordan Tyson. And it's like, okay, we understand that Iowa State, you guys put up hella points on Iowa State and whatnot. I think one of the things that we're looking at from our vantage point, though, is they run that 3 safety look with John Heacock, and they've had trouble against the run. Iowa State is a team that has to have the right personnel up front. They do have a very good secondary, but they had really struggled all year with containing the run. And y'all came out and smacked them in the mouth
Yeah.
from the beginning. But the other thing that you guys did in the Big 12 championship game that I thought was interesting, credit to Coach Dillingham, was you were hyper aggressive. 4th and 1, not just going for it on 4th and 1, but taking shots on 4th and 1 and really keeping them on their heels to where they never got settled defensively on top of Sam Leavitt using his legs. What is that the same level of aggressiveness that you're looking to see from Arizona State in this game against this Texas defense, that one of the top defenses in the country, but also reeling a little bit from the Clemson game of some of the things that Cade Klubnik was able to do? I don't know how much of the Clemson game you saw, but just some opportunities that you may see there for the Sun Devil offense against the Texas defense.
I do expect Dillingham to continue to be aggressive. That's just one of the things that we've noticed in his 2 years of being in Tempe. Is this is a team that went from super passive and old-fashioned, I guess is the way I would word it, with Herm Edwards, who was a very old-fashioned NFL head
Sure.
coach back in the day. It was just kind of what we were accustomed to seeing. And then Kenny Dillingham comes out and you bring in the analytics into everything and all your 4th-and-go conversations and all that stuff. And ASU has just become, as you mentioned, a hyper-aggressive football team. And that's one of the things that's been able to keep them in a lot of games this year, is Dillingham's willingness and aggressiveness to say, oh, it's 4th-and-6, but you know what? I think we got something going here, and we're going to try doing it. Where in a lot of other situations, you see programs that go, 4th-and-6, yeah, we got to get rid of this thing. It's that unpredictable factor that Dillingham adds into these games that really helps ASU to stay ahead of, not ahead of the change, but ahead in the game of
Sure.
keeping the defenses off their toes. And it's like, you think that one thing's going to happen, but it's Kenny Dillingham. It's not a 56-year-old coach that is really accustomed to playing the game one way. Dillingham will play it in all sorts of different ways. And it's really exciting that way for fans, but also for people watching in the opposing team to try and figure out, okay, what's going to go on here. We're not really expecting like fake punts or anything, but what should we be getting ready for in that sense? So it's one of the ways that a less talented Sun Devils team than Texas, and it's definitively less talented, that's one of the ways that I think ASU can keep up in this game, is Kenny's willingness to continue pressing the envelope. And, that could also doom him. That could put you in some really bad situations if it doesn't work out. But that's one of the ways that they've been able to stay in games all year. And it's one of the reasons that I think they can continue to stay in games.
To me, I see that as I think Texas, and I think you would agree with me here, there's more paths to victory for Texas in this game, depending on different scenarios in this game. I think it's very clear that for Arizona State to win the game, Kenny's going to have to keep doing what he's been doing with the hyper aggressiveness. And that has been something that has gotten Texas in the past. I wouldn't say over the last 2 years, but a couple years ago in the Big 12, we faced off against Joey McGuire, for example. And he went into the game and decided every 4th down that's like not 4th-and-10, I don't care if I'm at my 27-yard line, we're going. Like, he just put that in the kid's head for all week of prep. And they had Donovan Smith back there at that time, and they just kept going for it. They went and they converted like 70% of their 4th downs against us. And that led to a big upset against us when we played them in Lubbock. So I think that's something that we have been since now, again, as our Texas team has matured, and we're a playoff team last year. We returned 70% of those guys. So we've been able to even manage those situations, because like you said, it could turn on his head. Joey McGuire tried to do it again, and the second time he tried to do it was we kind of had a plan for it. But that is something that can disrupt in the game, right? Because if it's normal game flow and you're running Skattebo heavy, is that enough, right? We've seen him carry the ball 25 times, 30 times, then have 5 to 6 touches in the passing game. He's a guy that, got some Heisman votes. I think we've gone a little too far without talking about Cam Skattebo and how he features into this game. What's the path to victory in terms of his usage? Is he a decoy in this situation, or does he have to get to Superman efforts of maybe 200 yards rushing, 150 yards total offense. What does that look like for you in terms of trying to secure the victory?
He is definitely not the decoy. He's going to be that Superman for you. What's so interesting about Skattebo is he's had some huge games this year. Mississippi State, he ran for 262 yards, even
Yep.
without scoring a touchdown. His last 3 games have all been hat tricks with 3 touchdowns, whether they were on the ground or through the air. Like, he finds a way to get into the end zone. He finds a way to make big plays. One of the things I alluded to a little bit earlier was that he finds ways to produce, even if it's 8 men in the box or 3 men in the box. And he has seen a lot of stacked boxes this year because opposing defenses would look at Sam Leavitt, a really green quarterback, and say, hey, we know how good Cam Skattebo is. We're going to take him out of the equation here. You're going to have to beat us with his arm. And early in the year, that was a good challenge because Leavitt was where he was. At this point, Leavitt is where he is now. But what's really funny is even with those stacked boxes, Cam Skattebo just found ways to grind out really hard yards, convert the third downs that he needed to, and he's just had a nose for the end zone all year. He's had 22 touchdowns this year in 12 games. He missed the UCF game, which I imagine he would have added a couple more in that one as well. He's just someone where he makes an impact, even if it's not in like yardage totals. He just has a nose for the end zone. So this could be a game against Texas where I wouldn't be surprised if he had under 100 yards, but 3 touchdowns because ASU simply continued to give him the ball with the thought process of, look, he's going to crack something eventually. We need to continue to place our full trust into him. We go as far as he goes. I wouldn't be surprised if he went for like 150 for the same reason. I know Texas has a great defense, and they're arguably the best defense in the country. I haven't looked at all the metrics, but I can't imagine very many teams are going to stack up with a team of Texas's caliber that's got young kids and NFL kids and all sorts of good stuff like that. I just know that Cam Skattebo is someone who just plays above expectation. If you look at him, you don't see someone that plays to the level he does. You just see some undersized white running back, and you're like, you know,
Yeah.
he could be
Sacramento
fine.
State transfer.
Yep, yep. And all of a sudden, you get on the field, and this guy's running guys over, and it's like, okay, maybe it's a little different. I've always loved the idea of you have super talented, freaky, athletic guys that are going to the NFL. But then you have some guys like Cam Skattebo that go to the NFL and you're like, okay, you're not the biggest guy, you're not the strongest guy, the fastest guy. What are you? And it's like, I'm just good at football. That's Cam Skattebo. He's not going to outrun you. He's not going to out physical the bigger dudes that Texas has, but he's just good at football and he's going to get his work done. And that's where I have the trust that he's going to be able to keep ASU in this game. And if he's not in this game, then yeah, ASU probably doesn't have a chance. I just don't see any scenario where he's completely eliminated. I do see a scenario where he's very limited, but ASU is still going to give him the ball 30 times anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to have to be something to where. So two things, and let's talk a little scheme stuff, right? So you guys use a lot of direct snap with him,
Yes.
which is smart to even out the box with the numbers because you get the extra. I know you normally spread out Leavitt, but Leavitt takes a guy with him. So and now it's even numbers. So that's one thing. That's one way you can easily mitigate that. Y'all did that continuously against Arizona. Get the Iowa State. I mean, that's part of your package, part of what you do in short yardage. And the other thing is the passing game, right? And hey, he's having trouble getting going. There's been some games where he's been held to 3 yards per carry, but we're going to get it to him out of the backfield, things of that sort. So your linebackers got to be able to stay with him and cover safeties, whoever it has that assignment. I do trust that Texas can handle that with our personnel. And I trust that we will probably be, not probably, I do expect us to be the best defensive line you've seen physically and just athletically up front. I mean,
Oh,
in
in
the Big
years.
12, there's just not that group. And I know Mississippi State is a common opponent between us, probably the one common opponent that we have on the schedule that we've played between us being 12-2 and y'all being 11-2. But I look at us not having necessarily an issue. Now, for my Texas fans, I'm trying to think of who's the most common type of runner that we play because we haven't played a whole bunch of banger type running backs. We've played a lot of guys like more like Trevor Etienne from Georgia,
I've been told
or
he's better than Cam.
um, um, it's a different type of runner, but he's also running behind the Georgia offensive
Sure.
line, right? So it's I went on. So this is going to sound crazy. There's two people I'm thinking of. Number one would be we did see Jaquindon Jackson when he came back healthy, the Arkansas running back, who's a bigger guy. We didn't see their big guy, but Jaquindon Jackson's more of a physical runner that I would compare to Cam. And Khalil Mullins from Michigan, the big Michigan running back, who we saw the second week of the season, who counters with Donovan Edwards. I would say now Mullins doesn't do any of the catching stuff that Skattebo does. Skattebo's more versatile, but in terms of between the tackles as a runner, that's Texas fans. That's probably the most comparable type back we've seen. Now, again, it's a chess match because you're expecting that. Who are some of the unsung guys? Because we're going to get to the flip side of this, which is the Texas offense versus the Arizona State defense. But before we get to that, who are some of the unsung guys that we haven't discussed that could be factor into this game for you that you're looking at, Richie?
So I like the depth that ASU has in the backfield, and their primary backup, Kyson Brown, is someone that I've said has next level potential if he's able to get some more development. But he's a big kid. He's over 6 foot. He's over 215, somewhere in that range, and he is a true power back for you. He catches the ball a little bit. We obviously don't ask him to do it a lot, but having him come in relief of Cam Skattebo is like thunder and more thunder. And Kyson is someone that I think can really get rumbling if the offensive line is able to do their job. And they've been more than quality this year. I've been very critical of the offensive line to the point where I look back over the season and I'm like, I don't know, maybe I was expecting like perfection out of the group and wasn't totally fair with them. But
What was your issue
I,
with the offensive line? Was it more run blocking related or pass blocking related, or a little
it,
bit of both?
it was a little bit of both. And the thing that I've noticed with the offensive line is there haven't been a lot of sacks that they've given up. There's a lot of pressure, and it's gotten a little better down the stretch. But I will tell you that's one of my bigger concerns going into this game. As I look at Colin Simmons in particular, and I'm like, I don't know what your plan is for him. So it's a good unit. It's not a great unit. I've been very critical, but like I said, I also look back and I'm like, maybe I was a little too harsh at times. So Kyson is someone to keep an eye on. Our tight end, Shema Mateer, he only has 5 touchdowns. He should have had 6 because he dropped one that just hit him right in the hands against BYU. Yeah, BYU. He's a good red zone weapon for us. And without Tyson out there, he's going to be one of the primary guys. And then Xavier Guillory, who is your new number 1 receiver, he's a little bit of a jack of all trades guy, and he's got deceptively good deep speed. Like ASU uses him on fly routes. His ability to just separate simply with the speed is something that's very, very special with him. And he's got good hands. He's a solid route runner. He's not Jordan Tyson, but he's getting the job done in light of Tyson. And he's had some really good flashes this year. But those are the 3 not named Cam Skattebo that Texas fans should be keeping an eye out on. I would tell you Guillory would be towards the top of my list simply because he's your new wide receiver 1,
Right.
but it's also like it's not a significant downgrade. It is a downgrade, but Guillory is still really, really good. So I would keep my eye out on him. Shema Mateer, stud tight end, and then Kyson Brown. If Skattebo's able to beat up that defense, and then they bring in Kyson, it's like I said, it's thunder and more thunder.
So I guess one thing to kind of relay this back on the Texas side, we had a very tough second half against Clemson. Now TJ Moore, Wesco didn't go crazy, but Antonio Williams has been good all year for Clemson. Those guys really gave us fits, and we've been literally number 1 pass defense. I mean, when I tell you the only person I think that had thrown for over 200 yards, I don't know who had thrown for over 200. I mean, then Cade went for over 300. So that was a concern for us, but we had handled it well. Now, Guillory, I'm looking at guys like Jade Barron who won the Thorpe, Michael Taff, who's second team All American. Some of these guys to match up and handle that. The guy that would concern me though is if you have any type of other vertical presence. So one thing I saw in the Big 12 championship game, and I can't remember the young man's name on the Sun Devils, so I hope you can help me out. But it was like a 6'4" kid. Y'all just started throwing it up to.
Malik
That
McLean,
was
probably.
he was supposed to be redshirted, and then y'all took
Yep.
him off. Yeah, Manny Muhammad is coming off the worst game of his life. Who plays corner to the boundary for us, and he got targeted heavily in a lot of those yards again. Now, Manny's a really good player. I think he has a 73 PFF grade on the season. He's no joke, but they found the weak link, right? So that's one thing I'm concerned about, and I know that Kenny and them are seeing on tape is, are they susceptible to some of the back shoulders, the jump balls, 50-50 type stuff if we get them in those scenarios? I do think it will be difficult to ask Sam Leavitt to straight drop back pass against this Texas secondary, especially knowing how pissed off they were about their showing last week. So there's going to have to be some misdirection and creation of those one-on-ones. So we'll see. And then the tight end, like you said, I mean, he's dangerous in the red area as well with the touchdowns and the efficiency there. So y'all let us know in the comments if there's unsung heroes and whatnot. I am curious to see, with your concern about the pass protection, Texas with Colin Simmons, we do send Anthony Hill quite a bit, and some of our other guys like Baron Sorrell, Ethan Burke may factor heavily into this game. We'll see. Now, on the Arizona State defense, there's a lot of familiar faces from a Texas standpoint. I see the brother Xavier Alford over there with 82 tackles on the season. I'm happy for him. Who went to USC and then got to Arizona State. I see you guys have Prince Dorba in the rotation as well, formerly of Highland Park, formerly of Texas. So some very familiar faces. And then my boy Zach Swanson, who's been a little chatty, also formerly of Texas, who was feel some type of way about being let go. But talk to me about the Arizona State defense, man. I mean, obviously they've had to play up to a certain level for y'all to be 11-2 Big 12 champs. Talk to me about that defense.
The defense has a lot of really good talent. And when I think of ASU's defense, I don't go to a specific player. I go to defensive coordinator Brian Ward. And Ward has just been transcendent for this ASU defense. If you look in 2023, across the board, it's like none of these statistics look that great. Like they're middle of the pack in points per game and yards and this, that, and the other. And it's one of those where it's like if you watch the team on the field, it's more about like the willingness that these guys have to be able to play in the scheme that gives you some hope that for a better season statistically in 2024, which is what we ended up getting. And it still wasn't a perfect team. There was definitely some head scratching plays and drives and stuff like that. But that's where I'm so impressed with Brian Ward is he will come out into a game and first handful of drives, ASU's defense is just run over. Texas State, that is the perfect game that I could tell you to look at. ASU was down 21-7 at one point in time. And I can tell you as an ASU fan, I'm like, look, I know we're not supposed to be great because this is week 3. We had no idea what was in store for us, but we should be beating Texas State. And second half rolls around and they take care of business. The opening drive, Texas State goes down for a touchdown, and then we didn't hear from them the rest of the game. They forced 4 turnovers in the last 5 drives. One of those was a turnover on down, so if you want to count that, it is what it is. He's just the master of adjustments, whether it's after the first couple of drives, making an adjustment, halftime adjustments, and he's gotten quicker with them as the season has gone. So Texas could come out with 2 huge drives to just silence ASU, and I would still be sitting there, pissed off, albeit, kind of waiting like, all right, no, I know coach has got something up his sleeve. Let's wait and see, and then find a way to deliver some counter punches. The thing that worries me about this is against Iowa State, the first 3 drives for Iowa State field goal, touchdown, missed field goal, and they went right down the field. After those first 3 drives, we didn't see Iowa score again until about midway through the fourth quarter when the game was over. If that's going to be what we see moving forward, we'll say 3 drives and then adjustments are made. Well, if Texas comes out and scores 3 touchdowns, and that's 21 points. Unless ASU's offense is countering with a touchdown on each drive to get it 21-21 through 6 drives, which is
You can't play that way.
no, you can't. So having the trust for Brian Ward to clean that up quickly is one thing. It's another thing to say, oh, well, the offense didn't do anything. We're down 21-0 now. That feels like the game might be out of hand because unless ASU's offense is making the equivalent of mountain moving adjustments that the defense would be having to make, you're going to get yourself out of the game very quickly. So asking the offense to be able to cover up for your defense that needs some drives to get adjusted, like you said, you're not going to win a game that way. I don't think that'll be the case, but if it is, if Texas does come out first 3 drives and they just do whatever they want, unless ASU's offense is doing the exact same thing, and they should not be against what I consider to be the best defense in college football, it might be a long day. So Brian Ward, you can afford one mulligan of a drive, like a really bad drive, and then making adjustments along the way. But you can't have super slow, sluggish starts or you're going to get boat raced.
So I completely agree with you. And Rocco Beck and that Iowa State offense, Iowa State, for those who were not watching the Big 12 and Texas fans who moved over the SEC, Iowa State was actually their superpower was their offense this year. They were offensively driven. And Rocco Beck and them were moving the football through the air as well as on the ground those first few drives, as Richie mentioned, before they got shut down. The thing is complementary football. And that's exactly what you're talking about, right? It's you cannot allow them to get down 21 or 17, 3-score game of that. You know, Texas has struggled with maintaining leads at time, i.e., our last game against Clemson, where we were able to get up and generate that margin. But I don't think y'all are not built like they are in the throw game to just throw yourselves back into a game like that.
No, definitely not.
You have to. It's going to have to be complimentary of Skattebo and them and Kenny and how Kenny manages the game going forward and going forward to maintain possession of the ball, to continue to say, hey, we're going to limit the Texas offense. We're going to, because to me, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Arizona State, but I do think that for Quinn Ewers and the Texas offense, this is an easier matchup for them than what they've been seeing from the Georgia defensive front or
sure.
Kentucky and Texas A&M. So they'll be able to move the ball, especially the way that Texas has been able to run the ball. The thing is, you guys are going to have to generate turnovers, trick him, something. There's going to have to be something to keep possession with Cam and them on the other side. To me, that's the obvious path. But the way that, and that's why what makes it so interesting. The path to victory in the Big 12 championship game could be totally different from the path to victory in the Peach Bowl.
Right.
It's all matchups and styles. So that's what I'm curious to see. But, you know, I mentioned Xavier Alford and some of those guys. They do have guys that will take the ball away. We saw that in the Iowa State game. And that is something that we've gotten a little reckless in some games and throughout. So Texas is going to have to be buttoned up there and sharp and focused. If Texas is able to run the ball the way that we have pretty much in every game the last half of the year outside of Georgia, then it's going to be a long day. I mean, just it's just too much size and wearing down of the team. It's a lot. It's going to be a long day. So they're really going to have to be up front, play with hair on fire, and really put the ball in Quinn's hands and say, hey, turn the football over. The other thing I'm looking at, Richie, is where Texas is really weak this year is not offense or defense, it's special teams. Special teams has been a roller coaster ride for us. So I'm trying to look at
We are not far behind. 3 kickers on the year, barely 50% on field goal conversions. We're not far behind.
So I mean, how do you, in your head, right? If we did talked about this on offense, defensively, path to victory, right? I mean, what do you see in terms of how this can happen? Because to me, I just think that we're gonna have too much, especially running the ball and being able to play action pass and do some of those things. But hey, man, any given Sunday, any given Saturday, in this
Right.
case, any given Wednesday. So tell me, what's up?
The way that I see the path of victory for ASU is understanding, look, you're not nearly as talented from top to bottom. One of the things that I look at with Texas, and I go from the best player on that team to the worst player on that team, from quarterback 1 to quarterback 3, and the depth everywhere else, that's pound for pound, arguably the best roster in college football. It's one of the reasons why I was excited for ASU to get this matchup. And I think on that podcast that a lot of the Texas fans saw, I think the way it came across when I said this is the matchup I wanted was, oh, we can beat the best of the best and blah, blah, blah. For me, it was more of this is the best of the best. Here's a chance to prove where you're at. Because if you beat Texas, then like there's no more like overlooking ASU. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, those are
I
big
get you.
dogs. Right. So it's an opportunity for ASU to advertise themselves, but there's no doubt that they are the less talented football team. This is a team that is very well coached. They have great schemes. They have players that have tons of chemistry with each other. There's that brotherhood and everything. Like they've got they've got what they need to execute at whatever game plan and do the X's and O's and the Jimmies and Joes and all that good stuff. Now it's just a matter of can you do it against the best of the best? And ASU has not seen a team of Texas caliber all year. They haven't seen a team of Texas caliber in decades at this point. I've gone back to the 1997 Rose Bowl against Ohio State as the last time ASU faced a team of
Wow.
this caliber.
Was that the
I
Jake the Snake days?
take the snake. Yep. Could have won the Rose Bowl if they didn't do prevent defense, which we all know how great that works out. But this is a very, very good Texas team. I don't need to tell the guy who follows Texas that. They know all that for sure. But ASU has a puncher's chance in this game, if for no other reason than they've been able to play up to their competition all year long. I've not seen them play bad football against bad football teams. The exception of Cincinnati is we had Jeff Sims at quarterback, which
Sure.
I feel like everybody in college football can be like, oh, dude, yeah, we get it.
Yeah, talk to Georgia Tech or Nebraska fans about the Jeff Sims experience, and I understand.
Exactly. So they're still a good football team, if not a great football team for Arizona State, but this is a challenge. It's you got to be playing perfect and then even a little bit better than that. But I know that these players are ready for that kind of challenge and they've heard a lot of negativity all year long. They're they're going to be a driven team in this game. And it's not that Texas isn't a driven team, because that's another thing that I think a lot of people took offense to in that podcast was me pumping up ASU. And they were like, well, Texas is
Sure.
that too. Yeah, of course. Not trying to take that away at all. But when you're talking about how is a less talented team going to be matching up with a more
To pull
talented
this
team,
off.
right? It's got to be that. You have to have that mindset of, like, oh, well, Quinn Ewers, he's a 99 overall in Madden and I'm only an 89, but I'm going to play up to being a 99. Like, weird example, but that's just kind of the way they have to approach it is like, yeah, you think that Colin Simmons is the best edge rusher in college football. Well, my name's Clayton Smith and I'm better than him, kind of thing. Like, you have to have that moniker with you or you're not going to win the game. Football's a lot of confidence.
And that confidence can lead to flukiness, right?
It sure
And
can.
they can take an advantage, right? I think the start of this football game is very, very important. I know that if you guys can come out and try to dominate time possession, for example, or keep the defense on the field, creating those short fields, if when those opportunities strike, anything can happen, right? My thing is, I think the Texas defense in particular, when you talk about driven, I think they're looking to get some show that they're not the unit that they were again in the Clemson game. They did not play good football, especially in the second half, and you don't want those things to become a trend. So I'm just speaking from the Texas purview right now.
Of
You
course.
don't want that to become a trend, right? I mean, you want to come out and show, hey, we've been dominant all year. Even in the Georgia matchups, holding Georgia both games below 300 yards total offense. You want to come out and show that you're that group, not the group that Cade Klubnik shredded in the second half. And then just the same way that Texas offense woke up against Clemson, and after scoring 17 points against A&M and 19 points against Georgia in overtime, they were like, no, we need to get back to being the roll out of bed 30-point Sark offense and beyond. And they were able to do that. So I don't see why, they won't be able to continue that. But I think I'm at the point of where I'm actually ready to give a prediction for the game. I don't know if you can hold off. I know you guys do things a certain way on your platform, so I don't want to ask you to do something you don't want to do. But for me, I just think my defense is going to be able to get back to a certain standard, and I don't foresee, unless there's something out of the wind, that Sam Levin's able to run for 100 yards or something on top of everything else. I think it's going to be a tough day. And so I have it like in the 34-10 range. I mean, so us covering, maybe the game's a little close at first, and then us kind of getting that margin. And I think we're going to be able to run the football, quite frankly. But I want to make it very clear that I've enjoyed watching Arizona State play football this year. I think you guys are in really good hands with Coach Dillingham. I think him and Coach Prime were obviously disrespected by being the 15th and 16th ranked coaches according to the poll in the conference. And all you guys did was go and win the Big 12, right? So we know how hard it is to win that conference, and y'all did it in year one. So for me, respect. I really do have the utmost respect for you guys in Tempe. But if you want to give a prediction, or if you want to hold off, totally understand, Richie.
I don't have a score prediction ready just yet. What I'll say to the side of Texas here, and this is what I had mentioned. I did a preview of Texas versus Clemson in that playoff game. I said, first of all, I thought it was going to be a 10-point game. Totally wrong on that. What I had said was I wouldn't be surprised if this game was close through the first half or the first three quarters, but then Texas pulls away late. That's the way I could see this game going, is I think ASU will be in a slugfest with Texas, and they just cannot let Texas pull away late, because if Texas starts getting going in the late third quarter and the start of the fourth quarter, and they're just doing whatever they want to do on offense, and you start putting ASU's offense in that hurry up mode where they're not going to be able to do what they want to do, that's where the game gets away from you. So I do think ASU can make this a close game. I wouldn't be surprised if Texas ended up running away with it. As confident as I am in ASU, I also understand, again, this is the toughest game they've played in almost 30 years, in my opinion, and I know a lot of ASU fans would echo that opinion as well. This is a daunting challenge for ASU. At worst, I do think ASU can cover 13 and a half. They've just been a very good team this year, and a team that just does not get discouraged when they're winning or they're losing in these games. 13 and a half is a lot, period. But I think ASU can cover that much, and I'm not a moral victory guy, personally. A loss is a loss for me, but if that makes ASU fans happy, then, let's do it.
All right. So hey, and I'm cool with that. Hey, we got it. I think ASU can cover. And that does say something, right? Man, it'll be fun. New Year's Day. Richie, tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter pretty much all the time at Richie Brads. That's BRADZ 36. The podcast is there at LO Sun Devils. And then the YouTube page is Locked on Sun Devils. I do my best to reply to every comment. I have gotten about 600 or 700 comments since the start of this week. I've not been able to get to all of them, especially with the holiday year. I do my best. I am all about talking ball. If we want to talk some smack, I'll talk some smack as long as it's respectful. If we want to talk ball, I'll talk some ball. But yeah, if you guys ever want to have conversations about ASU, I'm definitely your guy. I love college football, period, though. So if you want to talk about college football, just hit me up.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, I know some of you may have been expecting smack talk today, but I wanted this to be educational to learn about the opponent. Best way to beat the opponent is to respect them through preparation. I've always been that way. The more you know, the more respect I have for you. Right? When you're not preparing for somebody, that's a sign of disrespect in its own right. Right, and that's how teams get upset. Right? I want to know everything there is to know about Arizona State. So I think I came to the right person to help break things down for us and kind of give us some backstory to some of the players that we're going to be facing off against on New Year's Day. Folks, we are content creators. Best way you can help us, hitting that like button. It's free to show love. Subscribe the whole bit. Richie and I appreciate it. Richie, it was a pleasure talking with you. Maybe we can link up for a little post-game analysis after the fact and see what we were right about or what we were way off about as we get the outcome. But really appreciate having you on today, man. Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and I am definitely here for a post game. I'm here for anyone making fun of me too. I I've had some people that are like, "This is the guy you won't hear from." I promise you will. Now, am I going to be in a good mood? Probably not, but I will
Richie
be
said, I
here.
don't run from nobody. I ain't run.
Doesn't mean I'm happy about it, but I don't run from no one.
Good, good. Well, I appreciate you, man. And for my Longhorn fans out there, y'all know what the drill is. Horns always up, hook 'em.